You're listening to Melissa and Lori Love Literacy. Welcome to Feel Good Friday. Our guest, Deidre Mayberry, saw a need for change in adult literacy, so she started a nonprofit called Reading to New Heights that provides a safe place for adults to build their literacy skills at no cost. We can't wait to talk with Deidre.
Welcome, teacher friend. I'm Lori.
And I'm Melissa.
We are two literacy educators in Baltimore. We want the best for all kids, and we know you do too.
Our district recently adopted a new literacy curriculum, which meant a lot of change for everyone. Lori and I can't wait to keep learning about literacy with you today.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Melissa and Lori Love Literacy Podcast. Today, we are discussing a super important topic, adult literacy.
Yeah, and we're here with Deidre Mayberry. She was a struggling reader herself growing up, and then she founded Reading to New Heights, which is a nonprofit that focuses on supporting adults to build their literacy skills. So welcome, Deidre.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
We're so glad that we're here. We're so glad we connected. And we're hoping that you might be able to just start off by telling us your story. How did you get to this point of creating a nonprofit for something that you struggled with when you were younger?
Yeah, so I can't tell the story about the nonprofit without going back a little bit. So growing up as a child, I come from a really big family and I come from a military family. So there was lots of moving around. So just the normal social norms that children go through, and then couple that with being a struggling reader. So a lot of that, because it was new schools, new teachers, it was really that relationship building that I was afraid to share that I needed help. I wanted to be liked by by the kids, being the new kid. So you just kind of I just never really shared that I needed the support. And like I said, I had 7 other siblings at home. So in that, there was, we're fighting for our parents' time to help us with homework. So really, I kind of just fell back, and I really just tried to do my best to make it by without, being exposed. I just felt so much shame as a young child. And then, as I kept going through, they noticed something was off from my grades. So that is when I got put into special education. So I was in special ed classes and I was doing better and I felt really good. But there was something when I was going into that 3rd year that I was I'm missing something. And it was just really important for me to not be behind as I felt. And I realized that as a young child. And when my dad got stationed back from being in Korea, I let him know I have to get out of special ed. I have to be able to be a normal, the regular classes. And, we kind of went through that. Deidre, everything on paper says you have to be here. As your parent, I can remove you, but it's going to be a hard journey moving forward.
How old were you at this time, Deidre?
So I had to be 12. I was 12 years old.
Advocating for yourself. I love it.
Yeah. And I'm just and I'm so happy that as my parent, he supported that for me too, because he could have said no, and I think about that all the time. And I just thank you for saying yes. Mm-hmm. And, so in that, we started moving forward and it was super, defeating at first. I'm not going to sit here and pretend everything was great. I really questioned myself a lot. I still had to find ways to hide because I just had this big thing. Of course, as a child and even as adults, you don't want anyone making fun of you. You want to be liked. So it was, I spent a lot of time hiding. I spent a lot of time working hard to hide that I needed help versus getting the help. So I found myself a lot. Anytime we were reading, I would pretend I was sick. I would start coughing, when it got to me, so I would be excused. And then when that method didn't work and I got made fun of, I would then go to my teacher and say, hey, can I read first, please? Because I practiced the first paragraph, right? Because, you kind of where you're going, you're picking up. So there was just so much extra work that was being done. Just to be able to make it. And where my dad was super supportive, whatever I didn't understand, he would try to re-explain it to me in a language that made sense to me. And I graduated high school, and we're normally like, I don't know if it's a big deal for everyone else, but it was huge for me because I know my struggle. I know just what I was lacking. So that was like the biggest milestone of my life because I could have had a different story. I could have dropped out of school. I could have just been done, but I really pushed through. So that was super exciting. And I was at that time that I was 18, that I was like, okay, let me go get help. But when I started going to different like centers and things that were available, I was already over the age of 17. So I didn't qualify to be a part of those programs. Oh. So that is where it was 3 different organizations that I went to where I'm from. And it was a third one that I was like, okay, one day I'm going to create something for people like me. And now I just have to figure out how to survive. And I really went into survival mode. And I forgot that I had said I was going to create something for people like me. So I spent the next 10 years surviving. I spent the next 10 years trying to figure out a college, degree that wasn't going to expose me and that wasn't too hard, a job that I can still be successful, but no one would know my struggle. And what I realized at 28 was you're working so hard to hide and to make it. What happens if you work just as hard to fix it? And then you're done, So it was just a light bulb moment. So I tested out like the theory of, okay, I have to now share with someone where I was terrified to do that. And I happened to share with one of my really good friends who is a certified educator. And I guess everything I thought that she would say or anyone would say was the complete opposite. She actually apologized that I was left behind and that it wasn't something that I was able to correct while I was in school. And then she started tutoring me discreetly. And it was in that I really started to find confidence. I realized that I had gaps in my literacy and that there was hope in just really filling those gaps. And as we started filling the gaps, it was just taking off. And I just felt more confident. I still protected it because it was something so personal to me. And I was terrified to kind of share that was my struggle. And it's something weird, even when you're fixing it, it still is weighty. Mm-hmm. And you're still like, I don't want anyone to know this. So as I started doing the work, and then I had courage to share with another friend, and I was like, yeah, when I retire, I'm gonna, go and help adults learn to read. And they were like, retire? We're doing that now.
I was gonna say, you look pretty young.
Yeah.
I don't think you're retired yet.
But that was, and I think really when I go back and someone asks, like, why were you going to wait till you retire? I think it was at that point, the shame would have been removed. I would have lived life enough. I would have felt accomplished. Mm-hmm. I would have had fully fixed it for myself by then, that it wouldn't have held the same weight that it did in that present moment. But I am so glad that, I shared and that we decided to start now versus when I retire, because it would be a long time from now. So, it was just really in that I realized the thing I was ashamed of and hiding, people were waiting for me because there was something put in the inside of me to support a group of people that truly needed the support. So that's just kind of my high level story of just how we got here. And then in 2020 is when we established a nonprofit. In 2020 also, that is when COVID hit and there was a pandemic, and I remember thinking, is this a cruel joke? Finally having the courage, and the very next day the city's being shut down. And it was in that moment that, we really had to decide, there's no better time but now. Like we're just, if we're going to do it, we're going to do it regardless, because there's always going to be a COVID or, or something that's going to stop us. So do we really want to do this work? And the desire was so great that we did. Yeah.
Man, before we get into the specifics of your nonprofit, I just want to say, first of all, thank you so much for sharing that story. I know that, you worked so hard to hide this for so long. I know it probably takes a lot for you to actually just talk about it. So thank you.
Yes.
But also I just know how you're not alone, right? You are one of many, many people. I saw it as a teacher a lot. The exact thing you're talking about, right? The kid that was, I'm sick, so I got to leave, right? Yes. Or you see they'll even just, they'll become the kid that is the problem child, right? Or I don't call them that, but they'll, do whatever they need to get out of the classroom, even if that means getting in trouble, right?
Yes. I spent a lot of time in detention for being late. I'm just purposely, right?
Right. That's even better than the shame that I'm going to feel for feeling this way. So I just think that's really important for people to hear, because it stuck with you throughout your entire time you were in school, and you weren't even ready to ask for help really until you were out of school. Then you're like, okay, now I feel like I can I can look for some help. That's just really powerful.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm so glad you said that, because that was something when I had the opportunity to share, on a news station, was terrified. Even now when I talk to you, there's still a part of that shame that rises up, right?
Sure.
That I have to keep it down. And I remember the phones ringing off the hook in the office, and people who identified with my story were like, oh, I've been waiting on something like this. And it just kept going. And it was in that moment that I was like, man, I've been hiding, and they've been waiting on me to give them hope, to give them a resource, to give them a solution to something that really feels hopeless. And so hopeless that it's paralyzing. And then I realized I wasn't alone, because a lot of times when you go through something, you think you're the only one. Why is this my story? Why did I have to go through this? And not that I want anyone to identify and share in my story, but so many people do, that you realize oh, okay, so I'm not the only one. And where there was so much shame attached, could the work have been done sooner? Could we really have started, working on this sooner? But,
on this podcast, we usually want to talk to a lot of people who are doing work in the elementary level, even the secondary level, because we do want to do exactly what you just said, Deidre, which is can we fix this problem as soon as possible, right? Can we get kids reading as quickly as we can so that they don't have to feel what you did going through school? But we know that's not always, right? That's not always the case. So can you tell us a little bit about Reading to New Heights and what you all do to improve literacy?
Yeah. So before I share, I will say this. A lot of the times, we look at really trying to get the problem at an early, young age. And what we fail to realize or look at sometimes is that their parents are a direct link to them. So a lot of the times, if you have a child that's struggling with reading, does the parent struggle with reading? Does the parent have the resources to teach and to really be an advocate for their child? And a lot of times it's not the case. And as you all know, reading is the English language is so special.
It's very difficult.
So yes, it is the hardest language to learn. And there's so many exceptions to the rules and just all of the things. So when you take someone who this is not their gifting, it's not their skill set, they don't understand or really know all the rules. Because some people, they just know how to read because they know how to read. But if they had to go and teach someone and break down, they wouldn't be able to do that. So when we think about the parents, because they're a direct connection to the child. And when we talk about generational, things that kind of get passed down or just norms, I feel like we have an opportunity to really support on the different end, to really be able to pour into the child. Because I have the utmost respect for teachers, because a teacher has a really unique space to really empower a child and just pour in. And that could be one or two ways. It could be for the good or for the bad, right? So it's such a powerful space. But I also think that we put too much on teachers, and where it should really be a partnership between the parent and the teacher. And a lot of times we're just seeing the teacher having to do it all. And so in that, I think that if we can equip the adults with what is needed to really support the child, to be able to help with homework, to help understand, to read, to explain, it will help to build that love. So that is why at the nonprofit, we really focus on creating a safe place for adults to improve their literacy skills. And what we do is we teach them as if they're learning for the very first time. We go back to the fundamentals of reading, and we give them the foundation, and we make sure that that foundation is solid. So we're not trying to do a quick, how can we get you to do all these things? We're just trying to equip you with what is the basics of this English language, and how do we equip you and make sure that you're strong in that? Because reading is a buildable. And even when you're done learning, you're still learning as you read and as you open up the pages of your favorite books or just different things. So we really focus on that piece of it, and which can be challenging because we're dealing with adults and we're teaching them, how to sound out their letters and asking what, digraphs are and, blends and all of that. But it's really helping to make sure that they have a solid foundation. And in that, we realize that those with learning differences really need something unique to them. Because when you're in a classroom setting, that's how you can, people can fall through the cracks, because when you ask the question of, did everyone understand? If you don't understand and everyone else says, you don't want to raise your hand. So no one's saying anything. So you're moving on and you're like, I have no idea what's happening, but I'm not raising my hand because they did it. So we really focus on that piece of truly just giving them the fundamentals of reading as if they're learning for the first time. And we do it discreetly. So again, we know that shame is stopping a lot of people from getting help, because we're not the first adult organization that supports adults with their literacy. But I ask the question, if there's 130 million adults that are not reading proficiently above a 6th grade level, why are they not going to these programs? And why are they not able to get the help that they need? And shame, time constraints, or just special circumstances really kind of fit that bucket, right? So that is why we really focus on a one-on-one individual approach, so that we can support the adult learner and make sure that they have what they need so they can be successful.
Can you share a little bit about what that looks like? Is it in person? Is it virtual? What happens? And is there a cost associated with this?
Yeah, all great questions. Yes, so it's actually virtual. So we do it virtually as part of the discrete method of no one has to see you walk into a building that has a name. So it's virtual. It is free of cost to the adult learner. So one thing we also understood is, as you guys know, tutoring is expensive. And some people, if they don't have the financial means, they won't work on it. So we provide free for an adult learner who wants to improve on their literacy skills. And we just really believe that it is such an essential skill that everyone deserves to be able to have it if they want it.
Makes me sad that there's so many adults out there, and that, like, I'm so grateful to you, but it also makes me really sad at the same time that this is definitely a problem that we have the solution to. And I think about that all the time. Like, we know how to teach kids to read. We know how to teach adults to read. We know how to teach people to read. And we still don't do it, and we let them fall through the cracks. And I know the listeners of this podcast are so invested in not only learning more about their craft and to improve, but really committed to that idea that we know how to do this, and let's do it. Like, this is important and this is ours. So thank you for sharing all of that. Thank you for keeping it cost-free and shameless. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. And I think, you make so many great points. And I think a lot of, we do have the resources, we do know how, but I think when we rush into how do we get, when we start looking at the quality versus the quantity of what we're doing, that's where the problem lies. So anyway, those are just.
Do you have any success stories that you might be able to share with us? Any adult success stories that stand out to you?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's so many, and because again, it's so personal to me. We have, let's see. So we have an adult learner that when she first started, she was terrified about, I only can meet between this time and this time because that is when my husband is gone. I can't allow anybody to know what I'm working on. And just the fear of not even my husband can know. And as she has been going through our program, we do a lot of things on social media and we'll do a lot of different fundraiser things to see her not only invest into something that's pouring into her, but to put her name and to say that how our program has changed her life, and that where I saw so much shame and embarrassment to like courage and pride, and I did this for myself, and now she can be an author. So she started writing a book. And we're just so excited just to see that drastic difference of no one can know I'm working on this to doing the work and super like being so invested, and now being able to turn that, that new set skill into writing a book as she's always wanted to. So that's super exciting. I know for one of our, another adult learner who didn't even have a driver's license, didn't really have a job, and was afraid of, what people are going to know. And it's going to be, they're going to make fun of me, to where I think it was probably halfway through, she got a job. She's trying, she's like, sounding out and using everything that she's learning. And then she just recently let us know that she was able to buy a car and that she was able to take her driver's test and actually pass. And that was just so exciting. And this is someone who came to us because she was in a GED program, but was so low literacy that they told her she needed something more before she can even move forward with them.
Oh, wow.
So just to be able to see like the small progress, like reading is so important, but it's also attached to like everyday life, from reading signs to, restaurant menus to if you're on public transportation and knowing where you're going. So it's so many great things. And we have one other person really quick who, her children are both in special ed, and her just feeling I can't do anything to help them. So she then shared that as she's going through the program, that she does the warm up that we do before every lesson with her children to really help them. So basically sharing, we're going to go through this together and we're all going to be successful together, and just really kind of removing that shame and bringing them along, because it's the children knowing, okay, my mom understands. She's been where I have been. She's working on it, so I can work on it too, and we can work on it together. So those are just a few small examples, but they're huge to me, because unless you are someone who reading is not your opportunity, just learning how to sound out letters is huge. So it is just, I'm just so grateful that I just get to even be a small part of their journey. And we're just trying to do the work. We're a newer nonprofit. I had no idea there would be so many that would need the assistance. So that honestly was a shock to me. But, in the best way, a shock in how am I going to help all these people?
Yeah.
But we are committed.
That's great. It's funny. I was going to ask you that question about like, why is adult literacy such a critical issue, which you've already answered in different ways, but I'm just going to hit them again, which you said 130 million adults in the United States. Is that?
Yep.
Would need
so that's
support?
54%.
Because that's astounding to me that that is the U.S. number.
I mean, it's the majority. Yep. It's the majority.
Yes.
That's
when I was looking at that, I was like, oh, that's 54%. That's more than half. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we have work to do.
That's crazy. But and then adding on to that, you've mentioned this a few times, the the impact on all of those people's lives, right? Like that shame that they carry around, the struggle of from day to day of, just little things that a lot of people probably, 42%,
yes.
46% of
40,
people.
Yeah, 46.
But we just take for granted, right? If it's not a struggle, like just reading signs and getting your driver's license and being able to apply for a job, those things that are a really big deal. And
some of their goal is I want to be able to read the doctor's, and when I go to the doctor, I want to be able to read the forms, right? Yeah. I want to be able to fill them out. So that's how you're getting accurate information. I did that. I would go to the doctor. I'm like, I don't know what any of this says. Ain't nothing wrong with me, right? I would leave the forms blank because I didn't know how to answer them. I didn't know what they were saying. And if I did know, I didn't know how to spell what I needed to write down. And then so you're like, well, do I really need to go to the doctor? I could just go next year. It's fine. So there's all these, so many different things. And it's so embarrassing. And that's the part it's hard to kind of get over because truly some people who don't have reading as an opportunity and they've been able to read since they came out of the womb, they don't understand. So even like, no, this makes sense. I can't understand how people, there's a lot of people, and most people think it's just that people are illiterate, but it's really functional illiterate, like so that where they have some skills, but not enough to function well in society. And that's the bigger picture that I try to point out. We are helping adults that just can't read at all, but we're helping a lot of adults that have jobs and work, but it's at a very low level and they feel stuck where they are. And, it's just, and then the other thing is there was a statistic that I read that devastated me is that depending on how children do at their third grade tests, that is how they project bed cells for prison. And when I first read that, I was sobbing, and I thought, so we give up on children in third grade, like what? That's off to me. So it's just there's a lot of opportunities from different angles. But I do think that third grade can't be where we're like, okay, all right, they didn't pass. So this is how many beds we're going to have for prison. Like, that doesn't make sense to me. But.
So, Deidre, I'm wondering if you might be able to share about just what you've learned along the way. Anything that you think is important to mention?
We all need help. There's something that we all need support on. And there's no shame in that. So regardless of what it is, it may not be literacy. It may be something completely different, but I've just learned that we all need help. And it is never too late to start over or to start something new. So there has to be more around just starting. So those are, my biggest things. I've kind of said it earlier about teachers are so valuable. But parents need to partner with teachers as well to help them, accomplish what they're set out to do. And that's really to pour into your child and to teach a child, right? They truly are our future. So, and I think just if you can support, in a person with anything, whatever that looks like, be a helping hand, because you never know whose life it will change. And that can be something as little as words of encouragement. That can be helping someone who you see in the grocery store that looks like they're lost, right? They may need you. They may not be able to read the sign to see where it says pasta sauce, right? So, and you never know just what that will do. And just kindness goes a long way.
Well, we're so glad that you're here, and thank you for that message. We've linked your website in the show notes, but even more than that, I know this is like a feel-good kind of season. If anyone would like to make a donation to Reading to New Heights, we've linked that as well.
Thank you.
Nice work, Lori.
Yeah. Come on it.
Deidre, is there anything else you want our listeners to know before we go?
No, I'm just grateful anytime that I get to just share a part of my story. My hope is that, there's something that someone can walk away with. And as we are in this season, just remember kindness goes a long way.
Yeah. Well, we're grateful that you shared this story with us and our listeners and for everything that you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for listening, literacy lovers. To stay connected with us, sign up for our email list at literacypodcast.com.
And to keep learning together, join the Melissa and Lori Love Literacy podcast Facebook group, and be sure to follow us on Instagram and Twitter.
If this episode resonated with you, take a moment to share with a teacher friend, or leave us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts.
Just a quick reminder that the views and opinions expressed by the hosts and guests of the Melissa and Lori Love Literacy podcast are not necessarily the opinions of Great Minds PBC or its employees.
We appreciate you so much, and we're so glad you're here to learn with us.